Well, greetings and salutations, and welcome once again to the Newsman Weekly Podcast, episode number 33. Thanks for joining us once again. We know there are thousands and thousands of podcasts out there to choose from, and we are honored you join us each week for our little weekly gatherings here at Richland Source. Thanks also once again to local country singer Luke Watson for crafting this show's theme song. For fans of Luke, again, great news for you. He's going to join us in studio next week. He's going to bring his guitar, we'll talk about his music, and we'll share some of that music. He will share some of that music with us on the podcast. That episode will drop on February 18th. So mark your calendars now, Luke Watson fans, for what should be a pretty good, exciting morning of country music. And today I am joined once again by Zac Hiser, the executive producer of the Newsman Weekly, and also Grant Ritchey from Knox Pages, the show's official videographer, for at least one more week. Hey guys, what about that Super Bowl last night, or Sunday night?
Sunday night, yeah, Super Bowl was great. Great game. Yeah, how about that Tom Brady?
He's so bad as an announcer. I'm sorry. I miss Greg Olson as a color commentator.
Oh, okay.
There was just so many bad jokes that Tom Brady, he made one about Kevin Hart, and then Kevin Burkhart, I think his co-announcer, he was just stood there in silence and didn't really laugh. But anyway.
Richie, that's like the most fired up I've seen you in the 33 episodes that we've recorded. Tom Brady clearly has struck a nerve with you.
Justice for Greg Olson.
It's just like he used to commentate all the Cowboy games during the last season, so I would constantly have to hear his voice over and over and over again. It just wasn't that good. I'm sorry.
The thing, and I don't tweet a lot about this kind of stuff, but I did tweet this last night, that hearing Tom Brady do color analysis on football is what I would imagine if ChatGPT was writing his lines.
Or probably me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like
kind of
football.
robotic.
Yeah, he does a wonderful job of telling us what we all just saw.
Yep.
And he loves to call players by their first names.
I was at a Super Bowl party, so couldn't really hear the color commentary, but I think I listened to a Tom Brady game earlier this year that I enjoyed some of the insight. I feel like it is kind of cool listening to the guy, like one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, break down plays a little bit.
But he doesn't.
Well,
he doesn't.
The game I listened to, there was some of that, but
guys.
I guess during the Super Bowl, he's just trying to make dumb jokes, which is not his lane.
Oh yeah, he actually made some reference to Kevin Hart. You can see Kevin Hart?
Yeah, that was a bad joke I was talking about.
I'm like, yeah, really, dude? I realized Kevin Hart filleted you at that roast you made $1 bazillion for.
Exactly.
But that was a dumb joke.
What do we think of the commercials? Halftime show,
Budweiser commercial, always my favorite. I mean, it's the heartstring one. I also like, I don't remember what it was advertising, but there was like a kid with a cowboy head.
Fubo.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
The Tubi one?
Was it Tubi?
Yeah, Tubi.
Tubi.
Sorry.
Yeah. That was
what is Tubi?
It's basically like a free streaming service, so you don't have to pay for anything. It'll have like some TV shows and movies on there.
What does it have to do with a kid whose head's a cowboy hat?
It's like a genre of Western, I guess. It was like, grew up a Western fan, so like a genre of media.
There was another one. I forget the actor and the actress that were playing pickleball.
Milk Ultra, or it was like a beer.
Yeah.
Had William Dafoe in it.
Yeah, William Dafoe. And I forget the other actress's name. She's obviously well known, but I'm old, so I don't remember it all. But I thought that was a great commercial.
That was a good one.
What about the seal one, where they made seal into a seal?
Yeah, I missed that.
It was weird.
I mean, at a certain point, I turned the sound down.
Yeah.
And I turned up, music in my house. So I was probably at that point was listening to One More from the Road from Leonard Skinner.
Yeah.
So,
it didn't help that the game was over by mid-second quarter.
Yeah, but I actually enjoyed that part because
I did too.
I so much wanted to see the Kansas City Chiefs get humiliated, spanked, humbled, crushed.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they got.
They did.
So now I don't have to hear anymore that it's going to be a historic three-peat. It's not historic. One team has won 3 NFL titles in a row, and they've done it twice. It's the Green Bay Packers. They did play football before the Super Bowl. I'm just saying. So, yeah, seeing Kansas City get smacked around like a Bobo doll.
Not just lost. They got smoked.
Yeah, and the scenes of, I think, Patrick Mahomes running off the field after another failed third down, looking up at the video screen, trying to see what went wrong. That was my favorite.
Another like the interceptions.
Like, where are these guys coming from, you know? It's like a scene from, this movie's going to date me. You guys never saw it. I'm sure Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Oh, yeah.
Paul Newman, Robert Redford. They're being chased by a posse, and this posse won't leave them alone. And at some point, one of the two says, who are these guys? And I'm sure that Mahomes is coming off going, where are these guys coming from?
Yeah.
Every stinking play. So, yeah. And, of course, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, you know, seeing their dreams snuffed out. You know, it was a great week.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift wins no Grammys, and then her boyfriend gets smacked and plays probably one of the worst games of his life. He should retire now.
He should.
And
Hang
just
it up.
go off and do podcasts with his brother.
Come on the Newsman Weekly.
Yeah. Travis Kelce, here's your official invite. We will have you on the Newsman Weekly, and you can explain why you tried to continue to play football when clearly your best days are behind you.
Yep.
When you're talking about Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, that movie is free on Tubi, by the way. I just looked it up, so you can watch that again.
Yeah, well, but I will tell you, in the movie, nobody has a cowboy head.
Yeah.
They have cowboy hats, but nobody has a cowboy head. All right, anything else about the Super Bowl you want to talk about? Richie, did you lose $5 million betting on the game?
No, I don't sports bet, but yeah, I mean, the odds makers were thinking that Chiefs were going to win. It was kind of a pick-em game at that point.
The Super Bowl is always a pick 'em game. I do sports bet a little bit. You know, I dabble. Won $20 on the Eagles.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I also don't.
I wasn't surprised that they won. I was surprised it was a blowout. But the Eagles had the better team. The Chiefs just kind of had this storybook run, and they won a lot of close games. And their team's just not that impressive outside of, you know,
they don't have
great quarterback.
They don't have great fleet wide receivers. Patrick Mahomes spent the whole season.
And clearly they could not get open last night.
He spent the whole season dinking and dunking. I think the Chiefs' offense probably had their worst season in many years. They averaged 20-some points a game. They were not.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill wasn't coming out of that tunnel.
No, he wasn't. But yeah, I was very impressed with the Philadelphia Eagles. I was very impressed with the Green Bay Packers because we gave them two very good games. Packers lost by 5 in the season opener to the Eagles down in Brazil. And then we held them to 22 points, lost 22-10 in the playoffs. So as far as I'm concerned, Green Bay was the number 2 team in the National Football League this season.
Rank them number 2.
I already have in my personal record book, the Green Bay Packers are second in the NFL.
I'd like to
this
see
year.
that record book.
It's quite the book.
I mean, the halftime show was pretty amazing. You know, you might not be a Kendrick fan, you might be, but I felt like I was watching a music video. I mean, that was art. I
didn't have the sound on. I did have. I
had it blasted for halftime.
I was listening to "Call Me the Breeze" at that
great
point
song.
by Leonard Skinner.
That's a great song.
You know, Kendrick. I have long since passed the point in age where Super Bowl halftime shows are created for people like my age.
Right.
Doesn't happen.
Well, they did. You know, didn't they have?
They had Paul McCartney there watching the game. I saw that.
Oh, yeah,
they'll have a boomer halftime show.
I don't think they ever will again. I think, in all honesty, Prince remains undefeated.
Okay.
For the best ever Super Bowl halftime show. I mean, I think it was in Miami.
Yeah.
And it was raining, and he's on stage, and he plays Purple Rain in the rain. I'm like,
that was epic.
Yeah. So Prince still undefeated in terms of Super Bowl halftime shows. All right, we got a great show for you again today. Joining us in a few minutes will be City of Ontario Mayor Kris Knapp, who recently marked his 6th month in office. Richland Source reporter Grace McCormick, whose beat includes Ontario, will join us for that conversation. Lots of stuff going on in Ontario these days, and Kris will bring us up to speed. So, hey, stay tuned for that. But for now, let's talk about some local news here, since this is the Newsman Weekly. In case you weren't up early yesterday morning, as I was, Mansfield native Matthew Failor finished 8th over the weekend in the 46th annual Kuskokwim. Try to say that 3 times, Richie.
I'm good. I don't think the listeners want to hear that.
Yeah, I didn't either. I was being rhetorical, but thanks for noticing.
Hold on, I just had to go look up halftime shows. I just got to say, they had a run from 2005 to 2009. Paul McCartney, Rolling Stones, and your Prince show in 2007.
Right.
Tom Petty and Bruce Springsteen.
Now, and think about what age that was. Now, give me the last 5 years.
That was boomer nostalgia.
Right. Now, give me the last 5 Super Bowl shows.
I think it's Kendrick, Snoop Dogg, Rihanna.
Kendrick, Usher, Rihanna, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem. That was for my generation, the millennials, Gen X.
You'll realize
and then The Weeknd. Yeah, you're right. I mean,
those shows are no longer aimed at guys
15
like
years
guys
later.
Age. Right. And 15 years from now, it'll dawn on you when you're watching the Super Bowl show. I don't know anything about who is this
I already
person.
Needed like subtitles of who some of the guests were. Yeah. So they should do that.
Well, anyway.
Yeah, go on. Back to local news.
Back to local news. Failor finished 8th over the weekend in the 46th annual Kuskokwim 300 Sled Dog Race in Bethel, Alaska. His wife, Liz, and 19-month-old son, Theo, were both waiting for him when he crossed the finish line in a tick over 39 hours from when he started. Excuse me. I got up early Sunday morning to watch Matt finish on the live stream. Yes, I can find a live stream even at my advanced age. He finished
quite good at it, actually.
Well, he finished just after 4 a.m. Alaskan Standard Time, which made it a little after 8 a.m. here. It's always fun to see these amazing dogs that are born and bred for sled dog racing. Now, the Cusco and the Copper Basin 300 that Matt raced in a few weeks ago are all preparations for the 1,000-mile Iditarod race that begins March 1st in Anchorage. We'll have lots of coverage before, during, and after the Iditarod as the St. Peter's High School graduate participates in his 14th version of what's been dubbed the last great race. Richie, how would you do as a sled dog musher, do you think?
I was just thinking of like the Simpsons movie when Homer Simpson is riding the dogs and he just keeps going up the hill.
Wait, so in your convoluted, sadistic, PETA-hating way, you have sled dog mushers whipping the dogs up the hill.
That's what he does in the movie. I wouldn't personally do that. I mean, that's what just came to mind. I love dogs and animals, so.
Yeah, okay.
PETA, don't come after me, please.
Yeah, PETA won't come after you for hating on sled dog racing, because there's a few things PETA hates more than sled dog racing. But yeah, just stop with that. There's no mushers whipping dogs. I'm gonna have Matt Failor come in and box your ears just for even suggesting that would be a thing. All right, moving on. In a move aimed at enhancing security, Madison Township trustees last week approved a plan to install 3 cameras at key locations. Road Superintendent Larry Wyrick made the request last week, citing the need for surveillance at the township's salt shed, garage parking, and gas pumps. The cameras will be provided by Schmidt Security Pro at a quote of approximately $3,660. Wyrick noted the township already has an established relationship with Schmidt through the fire department's camera system. Speaking of cameras, Mansfield may soon have a new first responder in the form of an autonomous drone. Safety Service Director Keith Ports demonstrated the new technology to city council members last week. He said when a 911 call comes in, the drone can be activated automatically, no pilot or observer needed. As soon as they get final flight approval from the FAA, it will then fly directly to the emergency scene and hover overhead, providing real-time visual information to first responders. Flying at 200 feet and traveling at 30 miles an hour, the drone can cover a 3-mile radius around the municipal building, can operate for 30 to 40 minutes on a charge before returning to its base for automatic recharging. Port said he believes Mansfield will be the first city in Ohio to use this advanced technology, which was developed by the Houston, Texas-based company Paladin. Back in September, the city's Board of Control approved a 1-year, $49,000 contract to bring this cutting-edge drone technology to local safety forces, both police and fire. Hiser, how would you like to see a drone hovering over your house tonight?
Well, I mean, it'd be fine, but it's not operated by anyone.
not once they get FAA approval.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you had a fire at your house, and I'm not going to give your address out over the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
but you had a fire in your house, and you call 911, I got a fire in my house. The dispatcher at a structure fire hits a button. The box opens, the drone comes out, it flies directly over to your house all by itself, and it hovers over your house.
They just put the address in.
Yep, they put the address in, they hit a button, the drone automatically flies, it hovers over your house. And in the case of a structure fire, it has a thermal imaging camera that would seize, let's say the fire was in your attic. It can look down, it can see where that fire is. Firefighters and who are responding and dispatchers can look and see on their screens what the drone is seeing. Okay, the fire is on the west-north side of the attic. That's where we're seeing the heat from. So it helps firefighters, even before they get there, to know where the fire is.
Mm. Well, what else are they going to use it for? What's another example aside from it?
Let's say there was a homicide scene, and it's at night. Even before police could maybe get there, the drone can be overhead, providing visual imaging of the scene. Again, with thermal imaging, it's going to identify people. Let's say a suspect fled, and the drone got there in time, and they can actually see this person fleeing.
Yeah.
If you had a lost child, you have children. Let's say, God forbid, one of your daughters wanders off one day while playing, and now she's somewhere in the neighborhood.
Send the drone out.
Send the drone out. The drone can fly overhead, come to your house, look over top. It can be controlled if they need to move around different places. I mean, the police department's had drones in Mansfield since 2017.
Yeah.
The difference here is the autonomy of this particular unit. Again, once they have final FAA approval, it can be there probably before police and firefighters can arrive on the scene and just give visual information.
What if it crashes? What if it hits a bird or something? Do they have a backup?
Lots of things crash in this world. I mean, Ritchie's career crashed years ago. But
I crash every week on this podcast.
Yes,
That's
I mean,
true.
crashes happen. But
I was thinking maybe it could be used during like a hostage situation, or
Very
maybe
well.
like someone's like staying in a house, like police want to have a view of the overhead.
Well, it would certainly get there quickly. Keep in mind it only holds a charge of 30 to 40 minutes. It would have to come back. But by that time, police can be there with their controlled drone units, and they can pop another one up over as needed. The idea behind this one is autonomy and speed in order to get to these scenes. Speaking of the city workers in Mansfield, represented by AFSCME Local 3088, are now 9 months into working under an expired contract. To draw attention to the issue, more than 50 union members and supporters gathered near Central Park last week, believe 2 different days, for a, quote, negotiations picket. Union District Representative Joe Daniels shared with me there was an initial optimism in his mind when Mayor Jody Perry took office in January. He said discussions with the city's new leaders about making improvements have not materialized. He seemed frustrated, stating that ideas aimed at serving the public more efficiently that the union has put forth have been ignored. The union represents about 150 city employees. The city and the union have held a dozen negotiating sessions so far, preparing to meet with a neutral fact finder. Fact finder will make a non-binding recommendation based on both sides' positions. When I talked to Mayor Perry, she said it's not uncommon for contracts to expire, but she hopes to reach an agreement soon, and that mediation has been used to help facilitate the process. So hopefully we get that done relatively
If the
quickly.
contract does expire, I mean, what will happen?
Well, it has expired.
Oh,
It
so-
expired in April of last year. They've continued to work under the current terms of that contract. Once a new contract is signed, the terms of that contract will certainly be retroactive back to the expiration of the previous contract. So if they get, for example, and I'm just throwing these numbers out, let's say you get a 3.5% raise. Well, that 3.5% raise is going to kick back to the beginning of that contract. So I don't think they'll lose. They won't lose the raise. But
How many what percentage of all city employees does this union represent?
Well,
You said 150 employees. I was curious how many total city employees there are. That includes like utilities and...
It includes any union workers other than police and fire.
Okay.
Police
they have their own unions.
Police have their own unions. Firefighters have their own unions. And those contracts, I believe, are coming up. If not, I think the firefighters, police are this year, and I think firefighters are either this year or next year. So part of the fun, I guess, of negotiating and leading a city is you get to negotiate contracts with unions and employees. Everybody's looking out for what they feel like their side needs. Hopefully gets resolved, and we just continue doing the public's business. All right, that's enough for now. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Ontario Mayor Kris Knapp and Richland Source reporter Grace McCormick. Stay with us. Well, welcome back to the Newsman Weekly. Joining me now are Ontario Mayor Kris Knapp and Richland Source reporter Grace McCormick, whose many beats include the community of about 6,600 residents just to the west of Mansfield. Now, we had Mansfield Mayor Jody Perry back in with us when she hit her 6-month mark in office. And I thought it'd be a good time to catch up with Kris, who hit his 6-month mark at the end of January. So good morning to both of you, and thanks for getting up so damn early.
Good morning, Carl. Thank you for having me here today.
Kris, let's start with this. You were a teacher and a coach, I believe, in Ontario High School for 33 years before you became Ontario's Safety Service Director for then Mayor Randy Hutchinson. What prompted that career move, and what do you think in your past experience prepared you to become the city's safety service leader?
Well, thank you. As you said, I started at Ontario. I graduated from Ontario, so I've always been in the community. And when I graduated, I went on to school to be an athletic trainer and also teacher. And fortunately, I was able to come back to Ontario schools. And I worked at Ontario schools for 33 years. Never left, stayed in Ontario. And not only did I have the students, but I had the students' parents and some of the students' parents' grandparents before I retired. It was a point in my career that I was ready for a change after 33 years. As I announced my retirement, former Mayor Randy Hutchinson approached me and said, "Hey, my service safety director's looking to retire. Is this something you'd be interested?" So, any challenge I like to take a look at. I stepped in and just kind of did some job shadowing with former service safety director Jeff Wilson. And it was in my wheelhouse. I was also the assistant athletic director at Ontario. So, learning the day-to-day operations, organization, budgets, purchase orders, all of that, it was right in my wheelhouse of the day-to-day operations. So when the opportunity came, I took it. And then halfway through that opportunity, former Mayor Randy decided to retire and take on another role outside of city government. And so I put my name in for the mayor position, and the party appointed me with the other individuals who also had joined. So that's how I got where I'm at, and I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to moving, and amplifying the city even more for where we started.
So I know that you sort of touched on this a little bit already, but after being a teacher and coach for 30 years, what are some of the similarities and differences between running a classroom in an athletic department versus running a city government?
I tease people about that. I'll tell them each department reminds me of a different class that I had. Whether it's the streets department, whether it's the police department, even city council. It reminds me of different classes I have had in the past. There's a management style. This isn't about me. This is about we. And, I try to surround myself around a lot of great people who know the job, who know what it takes with the job, and then let them do the work. I'm not a micromanager. I let them take care of the day-to-day task and work with them and try and take care of whatever the needs they have for that task and provide that for them.
Now, Obviously, there's been some other changes in terms of personnel since you moved up from safety service director, or is it service safety or safety service?
Service safety director.
Because
Yes.
every city that I've worked in, they usually flip flop that back and forth. So you've had to appoint somebody to fill your old job. You've also had to hire a new zoning inspector since you took office. How have those changes affected the city building and your operations, and how did you make those hiring decisions and what kind of people you were looking for to fill them?
That's a great question. First of all, as mayor, you have two appointments. One is the service safety director, and that to me is probably the most important appointment that you have. I reached out to a couple different people, and the one that stood out most to me was Adam Gongwer. Adam, he checked all the boxes, as I said before. He was former president of council for Lexington. I've known Adam for 20 plus years. He was our school resource officer. Mm-hmm. And we worked very close together. He'd be in my classrooms speaking to the students, athletic trainer, athletic director. I relied on him for a lot of different things. So I knew his management style. Very transparent with Adam, and that's a key. That he knows exactly everything, every decision that I would like to make. We have a great relationship that we can talk on anything. We may not always agree, but we respect each other's decision on this. And I think that's a great working relationship with him. I'm very fortunate that he moved to Ontario because he did live in Lexington, and we have a residency policy. So we're very fortunate. He's now handling the day-to-day operations with that, whether it's with our service employees, our police department. But still, he keeps me informed on the day-to-day operations. So he's done a great job. Then the other individual, Benji Hall. Benji, a former student of mine. I coached Benji when I coached basketball, when I was the varsity assistant basketball.
I think I still see Benji's shot.
Yes, yeah. You can't say enough about Benji. He's a people person. He's genuine. He cares about what he does. He's very loyal. He's one of the most loyal individuals I know. And when I'm looking to put my name against somebody, I want to put it with Benji Hall because I know he's going to back up all the decisions. He recently gave the zoning report to council for the first time. Did a tremendous job with the updates. He has resources to reach out to and did that. So I'm very impressed with his day-to-day working.
Yeah. We led with the story from Council's Roundup. I led with Raising Cane's because people just eat that up. No pun intended. But.
Yeah.
I did have a friend who told me she thinks of Ontario as Mansfield's shopping district, but I know that the city is trying to get away from that a little bit. City Council just approved a comprehensive plan, I think at the end of last year. So tell us about what it took to get there, some of the goals that you want to accomplish through that comprehensive plan.
Great. So here's what happened is our council decided to hire, and we started talking about this, 2 years ago, started talking about, okay, what do we need to do? What's a 10-year plan we need to do to improve the city of Ontario, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's housing, businesses, where do we need to look? So we hired a company to look at all aspects of the city. And that was very important because they found some areas that, sometimes you overlook or you didn't even think about, hey, that's part of our city, but we didn't realize that, we need to take a look at that. And with that plan and community involvement was very important. The surveys that we had out there and we met probably every other month. We had a committee of members that met every other month and started talking about each specific area of the comprehensive plan. Finally, they put it all together, presented it to City Council. They approved it. Now we have our plan that we can implement. And it's, partially my job as mayor to make sure that this plan is implemented here in the next, 4 to 5 years to see where it's gone. And, we're working on some of the ideas, whether it's the infrastructure, the CIC. I'm hoping to get that approved and get that started so that we can improve some of the areas that we want to.
Now, speaking of Benji Hall, he did tell Grace last week, or he told council last week, that Raising Cane's hopes to open in early July, I believe, at the former Denny's. Mm-hmm. And I got to admit, I am truly going to miss eggs over my hammy at 3 o'clock at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm just going to throw that out there. But I know Starbucks, they're going to have, a second location maybe by June near Home Depot. I think east of Chicago is looking at a location. Are there any other restaurants that you're in talks with about moving to the city? And I guess also, what do you think attracts so many eateries into your city? And is it ever possible to have too many of those?
You know, I don't think it's ever impossible to have too many. My daughter lived in Chicago for 5 years, and it seemed like every corner had some of these restaurants on them. So I think it's important when you take a look at these restaurants, you know, they want to be in proximity of each other. We do have some exciting news. I think it's going to be coming here this spring. Unfortunately, I can't announce some of those.
Oh, yes, listen, just tell us. You don't have to tell anybody else.
In fact, Benji just emailed me this morning on another restaurant. Once they apply for their permit, then we can make that public. And I think here in the next month, we'll have a couple permits applied for. I will also tell you that I am in conversation, and this is already public, the hotel up there by Target. Mm-hmm. I talked to the gentleman last week about it, and they are planning on coming back to council here in March to give us updates, but they are planning on moving forward with the hotel up in the Target area shopping complex. So as far as restaurants, you know, growth is important. We need to have growth. And one thing with Ontario, we strive to get that respect of the growth and improve everywhere. Now, putting them all in the same spot, that can be a challenge when it comes to traffic. And so we need to make sure that we're, you know, looking at that area also.
That hotel was Moment Development,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Correct.
Wanted
Yep.
to make sure I'm thinking of the
Yep.
right one.
Moment Development. I spoke to them on Thursday, and they told me that they were coming to the March council asking for an economic development meeting here, and we'll get that going for them.
Now, is that the one that's part of a larger development in that area?
I think it was planned unit development was the zoning.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, the PUD, right. Which you can have you can have the hotel, you can have business, and you can also have housing. Now, they're going to focus, obviously, on the hotel and the business side first, and then try and sub the housing out.
Yeah, it's interesting to me when, having been around here for like 35 years now, I still think there are people who think of Ontario as Lexington Spring Mill Road.
Sure.
That's Ontario, without thinking about there's a little bit more to the west of that. There's the rest of the city is kind of over there. Do you ever have to talk to people who have that feeling that Ontario's Lexington Spring Mill Road? That's what I know about Ontario.
Absolutely. And you know, as I said, I grew up in Ontario. I can remember riding my bike on Lexington Spring Mill before it was developed. I lived on the west side of Ontario and would ride up to the north side up to Walker Lake. One of my best friends, Doris Carr Park, his mom, we used to play basketball there. So I would ride my bike from where the schools are over to there. And that was well before it was developed. And it's telling people, you know, they used to, you know, General Motors. My dad was worked there for quite some time. And Sears, Roebuck, my mom worked there for quite some time. So, you know, I can remember the days when, you know, whether you were a mall rat or where you were the General Motors and riding the bike. But now with the way the roads are and the traffic and so forth, it's important to, you know, take care of the safety of individuals. And one thing that I want to try and do is develop that old Ontario. And that's where I grew up. And that's where the schools are, the Shelby, Ontario, Park Avenue West intersection. Right. That little building called Gilly Junction at one time. That's where I lived when I first started teaching at Ontario, right on that corner. So that intersection is important to me, and I know to the City of Ontario. And we have a lot of residents who are like, hey, let's bring this back. Let's get Ontario this part of Ontario back. We have a great park system, and we get a lot of people come to the parks, but then they're like, okay, where do we go from here? And another thing that we're working on is signage in Ontario. I know other Shelby and Mansfield, they have the signage now, and we want to develop that to give you direction on where to go. And Carl, just like you said, show them where to go, where the restaurants would be, where the park system is, because we are spread out. Unfortunately, we don't have a downtown, and that's probably the, struggle that we have, but we're trying to develop that part.
Mm-hmm. And you're thinking about a downtown on that intersection that you were just talking about, right? Or very close to it?
Correct. We want to work on sidewalks and get some walking going on with the schools. Our senior center is right in that area. We want to get some walking with that, and we just passed the safe route to school with ODOT here, the first preliminary meeting with them, and we just formed the committee for that. So that's going to be moving forward, and hopefully in the next 5 years we can get our sidewalks developed in there and then see what kind of growth we can amplify in Old Ontario.
Good deal. So you're the 14th mayor in the city's history since it was incorporated in, was it 1958? Did I get the year right?
Yep.
It's so long ago. It's so long ago I wasn't even born yet. That's how long ago that was.
So I know that you filed to retain your seat in the Republicans Party May primary, and 2 of the city council members, Troy Sapp and Josh Bradley, have also filed in that primary. And the winner will face Democrat Cody Ziegler. So lots of names. Why do you think there's so much interest in this race this year?
Well, I think, former Mayor Randy Hutchison, he was our mayor for 10 years. And once he decided to step away, that kind of opened things up. I will say that, I did apply, and the party appointed me, and Josh and Troy were also part of that process, and the party appointed me over them. I can honestly say all 3 of those names were former students of mine. So I know all 3 of them pretty well. And, it's important to take a look at the growth. I think we all have the same vision as far as growth. I feel that, first of all, I'm committed to Ontario. I grew up there. I taught there. And, I want to continue this process. Is very important to me to continue to get back to Ontario and see where we can go with it. I treat Ontario kind of like home. When someone walks in your front door, what do they feel when they walk in your home? And that's how I feel about the city now. When I was at the school, I felt the same way when I would host the tournaments. I met one of the coaches Friday night, and he said, back in the day when we had come from another school, we always felt welcome when we come into the school. But that's the same way I feel about the city here. I want you to feel welcome with that. So I do have that. My vision. I want to amplify the growth. That's huge with that, and then continue to see where these avenues can go. I'm big on relationships. As far as I want to continue the relationships, Mayor Perry and I, we communicate, very often, weekly, bi-weekly on different things and discuss, okay, what can we do to improve our area? Mayor Shag, Joe Geis up in Shelby, our CIC that I'm hoping to get developed with that. So it's very important to me to continue this process.
Now, one of the biggest questions in regards to Ontario, and you mentioned it earlier, is the site of the former General Motors plant. You and I, unfortunately, are both old enough to remember when that place was booming and was one of the biggest employers in Richland County. Now, I know CNG has a site there, but what does the future hold for the rest of that site? How do you continue to support the efforts, or do you continue to support the efforts of ICP, Industrial Commercial Properties, which bought the site, I think last year for about $1.14 million. ICP has been media silent for a little while now. I think the last time I ran into someone from ICP was at a land bank meeting, and that didn't end well for him. So what's going on with the former GM site that you can tell us about right now?
Okay. The former GM site, as you said, we both know, and that's personal to me because when my dad's office, he was in the personnel department, and as a kid, I can remember going and sitting at his desk playing on his manual typewriter at the time. There were days that I would spend in there with him. So I remember that plant and gone through tours of the plant. My brother also, he was an electrician there. So that site is very important to me, and I can remember going through the process when watching it be tore down, and my dad was upset, my brother was upset with that. So now we got to look at the growth. What are we going to do with it? And I get to actively be involved with that. The biggest issue of that property is power, electric. And we are working with First Energy on building, and when they tore that building down, they took the substation away. In order to get enough power for multiple buildings, you have to build a new substation. That's a cost of $7 to $11 million. Well, who pays for it? The city can't, because the city doesn't own the property. You have to own the property for that. So we are working with First Energy. I know I am personally working with First Energy on seeing where they're at in building the substation and that. I have President Gallo and our economic chair, Josh Bradley, working with ICP and communicating there. We're trying to work with that. I also have worked with Congressman Jim Jordan and State Senator Mark Romanchuk on these two things. They were in my office here within the first month of me being appointed mayor on that, which the communication, and Carl, as you said, the communication is important. So we continue communications with all of these people and entities and try to get the power there. I feel very confident. I think within soon we might have some answers for power. I feel very confident of with the discussions we've had that we're moving in the right direction.
In Ontario City Council, when Jody Perry was here on her 6 months, we asked her about marijuana as well. So now it's your turn. So City Council voted unanimously back in November to ban recreational cannabis dispensaries in the city. Mansfield City Council took a different path, and now it looks like there will be a dispensary at 1099 West 4th Street. So that's right on the border of Ontario. What are your thoughts on that location, and do you have any plans to visit the operation with your law enforcement folks to look it over?
Well, I think it's obviously, as you said, our city council and we had community members come in and we took a stance on, we're going to put a moratorium on this until we get more answers of what's going on with that. I think we all know, and I was a health teacher for 33 years, so, I have some knowledge as far as educating people on, the marijuana process, whether it's for the medical part or whether it's for the, recreational part and the good and the bad of that. So I do have some background knowledge on that. So as far as where it's at, it is in Mansfield, and I want to emphasize it's in Mansfield, not in Ontario, because our city council put the moratorium. Now, it's a mile from... Maybe not even that. Maybe a quarter of a mile from 4th Street.
That's the weird thing about driving down 4th Street.
Right.
It's hard to tell where Mansfield ends and Ontario begins.
Do we know what the cutoff is?
Yes.
I don't know, to be honest with you.
It's Home Road.
Is it Home Road?
Okay. If you are on the
Valero gas station.
That is Ontario. So if you take a look at Home Road there, the east side of Home Road, if you look at the yellow line there, the east side is Mansfield.
So
the west side of
Valero, Ontario Furniture Store, Mansfield.
Correct.
Gotcha. Right.
Correct.
Now I know it. Thank you, Chris. Now I know where the heck I am.
Yep. So, back to the moratorium, they're a quarter mile down. The other thing is those facilities, they have very strict regulations who they can sell to. It's not like, someone can go into, whether it's a gas station or a store, and just buy that. I mean, there's strict regulations there. The people who would need it for medical use, might be able to go to that. We just need to continue to educate our community on the good and the bad and the ugly, is how I call it, of any type of substance abuse.
All right. Well, we're about ready to wrap up, Chris, but I wanted to give you an opportunity. If there's something we haven't asked you about that you feel is really important about what's going on in Ontario these days, now's your opportunity to share it.
One other thing that, I know some people don't like to talk, but we did receive the grant from ODOT for the roundabout at 4th and Rock.
Oh, you just touched the third rail of politics. You mentioned roundabouts.
So I want to make sure that's out there, that people know. I did meet with ODOT about a month ago on site there at 4th and Rock. Everything looks ready to go. I think 2028 is when they are projected to start moving dirt and getting that intersection. So that's another major thing that you're going to see. We are looking at our zoning, updating our zoning codes to better enhance whether it's housing or businesses coming into Ontario. So we're looking for that. And, on a personal note, yes, it is an election year. May 6th, I want to make sure that people know to go out and vote. That is very important. When I talked to the Board of Elections, they said only about 10-11% will vote in the primary, and I think that's important to get out and vote. That's a key thing. I have my website, keepknapp.com, up for there, so you can go on there and see those things that are going on with that. But I think it's important to make sure people get out and vote, and that we can continue working for our city and helping it grow, and the safety, security of our city. We have some new police cruisers coming in. I'm looking forward to that, to see what goes on with those and how we can, protect our city with things.
What about the Richland Mall? Is there any I forgot about that. There was a
Ontario
YouTube
Center
video.
now, Zach.
Because it's not
right.
the Richland Mall anymore. That's why you
Right.
forgot
Is it
about
officially not the Richland Mall anymore?
No, it is not.
Oh.
I don't know that they've updated all their signs and stuff, but I know that it's officially the Ontario Center.
Okay.
And the Ontario Center has, they're under new ownerships. The individuals also own the mall in Piqua. I did travel to Piqua and visit that area. My other daughter actually lives in Piqua, so that helped. They're looking at maybe putting a ice rink in the food court area, some restaurants, adding to that. I've heard pickleball also potentially with that. So we're looking there. And that's another thing, Stowell Park, we were able to receive some land from the land bank, and we're looking to expand our Stowell Park now and add more pickleball courts that go in that area.
Well, very good. We're going to have to end the discussion with that point here today. Kris, thanks very much for coming in, and best of luck over in Ontario. And Grace, thanks for coming in and riding shotgun with me this morning. I certainly appreciate that.
Thanks for having us, Carl.
And folks, we're going to wrap up today's show on that note. Thanks again to all of you for listening to the Newsman Weekly. I'll be back in a second to put a bow on this week's episode. But until then, remember what Mark Twain said. If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything.